I'd like to call the Prince William County School Board meeting to order. We are on item 1.02, which is approval of the closed session agenda. A motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Jessie.
I move that the Prince William County School Board approve the closed session agenda as recommended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Ralston.
I second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Those in favor of the every time. Online voting is now open.
I can't vote because I'm not in. Where?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, but they weren't logged in. I apologize. I jumped the gun. I can record your vote manually, too, if we need to.
Okay. I don't know what's wrong with this now.
Is your username your full?
Miss Ralston, I can enter it in. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on that. I'll wait till you get logged in. But
That's all right.
how do you vote, Miss Ralston? I can plug it in right now.
Yes.
Okay. Miss Satterwhite?
I sent mine.
Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, I see it now. Thank you.
It's popping out.
It did pop up. I got everybody.
Is your username your full PWCS skill at
Mine
EDU,
says-
or is it just the front?
The vote is 6 yes, 2 absent, Deutsch and Williams. Motion passed.
Thank you. And now the motion to enter closed session.
Mr. Chairman.
Miss Jessie.
I move that pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711, that the Prince William County School Board in a closed session for the following reasons. 1, to discuss the appointments and releases of specific employees under Virginia Codes 2.2-3711A1 and 8, and 2, to discuss and take action on student disciplinary matters related to the placement appeal of long-term suspension appeals and expulsion of specific students under Virginia Codes 2.2-3711A2 and 8.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Oops, Mr. Chairman.
Miss Ralston.
I second.
Thank you. Discussion. Online voting is open. Miss Ralston votes yes. I will mark that for her.
The vote is 6 yes, 2 absent, Deutsch and Williams. Motion passed.
The Prince William County School Board will now enter into closed session, and we return at 7 o'clock. The Prince William County School Board is returning from closed session to open session. We are on item 6.01, which is approval of the closed session consent agenda. A motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman.
Miss Jessie.
I move that the Prince William County School Board approve the closed session consent agenda as recommended.
Thank you, Miss Jessie. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman.
Miss Ralston.
I second.
Thank you. Discussion. I'm going to wait for Miss Williams to log in here to make it easier on everybody. All right, so with that, the motion is that we approve the closed session consent agenda as recommended. Online voting is open. Six at 1. I'm sorry, I missed it. I apologize. Online voting is closed. I missed it.
The vote is 7 yes, 1 abstain, Williams. Motion passed.
And on to 701, closed session certification. A motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman.
Miss Jessie.
I move that pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3712, the closed session of the Prince William County School Board meeting on November 29, 2017 be certified by adopting the following resolution. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Prince William County School Board hereby certifies to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meetings requirements were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard and discussed or considered by the school board.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Ralston?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Voting is open.
The vote is 7 yes, 1 abstained. Williams, motion passed.
We'll have a very brief pause before we begin the public meeting. I'd like to call the Wednesday, November 29th, 2017 school board meeting to order. To begin tonight's meeting, we will have the invocation led by Reverend Sean Rousseau, priest in charge of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Haymarket, at the request of Allison Satterwhite of the Gainesville District. Mr. Rousseau.
Thank you for the invitation to be here this evening. We pray. Source of all being, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and good manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought together out of many nations and tongues. Fill with the spirit of wisdom those to whom we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to the law we may show forth your praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness. In the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in you to fail. We commend our nation, our commonwealth, our county to your merciful care, that being guided by your providence, we may dwell secure in peace. Grant to our own Prince William County School Board the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices, promoting the well-being of all people. We ask this prayer and all the prayers we hold in our hearts in your name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, we've got a slight break from protocol. We normally go into the approval of the public meeting agenda, but before we take any votes today, we have some good news to announce. We're making history tonight by welcoming the first ever student voice on our school board. Will the following students please stand and remain standing? Kate Arnold, who is our first student representative to the school board, Maheen Sanchez, and Zaki Panchiri, who are selected as alternates. These students were chosen through a very rigorous selection process that included a review of applications from students across the entire county. Each has an impressive background in academics and extracurricular activities and has earned multiple honors and awards. They are all seniors who have demonstrated leadership and communication skills, the ability to handle multiple tasks, and willingness to keep an open mind to opinions that differ from their own. These were among the criteria addressed through the application process. The initial application reviews were conducted through a blind process, which meant applicant names and schools were not revealed to committee members. The finalists then submitted essays and faced personal interviews with a selection committee of staff members. We are very proud to say that Kate, Maheen, and Zaki are outstanding representatives of our nearly 90,000 students. Kate attends Hilton High School, Maheen is at Potomac, and Zaki attends Patriot. Congratulations on your selection. You guys can stay up. Don't sit down. Everyone else can. You three. Stay up. The student member of the board is non-voting member, but will have an opportunity to share ideas, suggestions, and concerns from a student's perspective, which are solicited from your fellow PWCS students. Will the proud parents and siblings please stand to be recognized? I now ask that everyone have a seat except for Kate Arnold, and I invite you to join us up on the dais at this time. And everyone can remain standing, because I did jump ahead of myself, and I apologize. I received a note. Thank you very much. I missed the pledge. Funny timing to do that. So missed the pledge, and since we do have a student here now, Kate, I'm going to ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yeah. You want to get a picture? All right. Then we do it after. All right. We are on item 10.01, which is approval of the public meeting agenda. A motion is in order. Ms. Jessie?
I move that the Prince William County School Board approve the public meeting agenda as recommended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Williams?
I second.
Thank you. Discussion? Online voting is open.
The vote is 8 yes, unanimous, motion passed.
Adoption of the consent agenda. Motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Jessie?
I move that the Prince William County School Board approve the public meeting consent agenda as recommended.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Williams?
I second.
Thank you. Discussion on consent. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Deutsch?
is item 11.02, and can we actually have somebody from staff just come forward and explain what's going on just for the benefit of the public?
Of course we can. Dr. Waltz, who should we get for 11.02? Just give them 1 second while they figure that out.
Good morning or afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Kate, welcome. The student management system is a tremendously important part of Prince William County Public Schools. It is how we keep our student records. It is in many ways fundamental to the information that is exchanged about every student and also to the ability of teachers to plan for the education of students. As many of you know, for the past several years, we've had certain problems related to the student management system, not the least of which is the difficulty of our parent portal to provide all the information students want. What we have done now is begun the process of replacing the student management system, with your approval, mind you, and with that will come the parent portal. Now, this has followed a very rigorous and lengthy request for a proposal period, but even before that, a search for information about what parents, teachers, and students needed, and then an establishment of criteria which led to the selection of the vendor. And I would like our Director of IT, A.J. Phillips, to come up and share a little bit more about that.
Good evening. I am super excited about this new system upon your approval. I know parents will be much happier with the new system, students, teachers, everybody. And this is a very robust system, a system that's used by larger school districts across the nation. And we did a lot of talking about this system, and this took us a long process, but I'm very excited about it, and I think that it's in the best interest of the school division to move forward with it.
Mr. Deutsch has the floor. Do you have any additional questions, Mr. Deutsch?
Just one last question. And then there's a big price tag on here. Just to clarify, this is something that was already in the TIP that we discussed during the last budget cycle?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Williams, then Ms. Ralston. I'm sorry, Mr. Deutsch, were you finished? I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Williams, then Ms. Ralston.
Oh, I didn't see a price tag on here. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see. So, because every parent in the school system I know is waiting on, are we going to have to go to 8 sites? I mean, I know we don't go to 8 sites now, but is it going to be self-contained?
The system that we're looking at will be a hosted system, so it will be contained into one area that they will be able to go to. They'll have their own login. It will have their grades. It will have the parent portal. The students can even access stuff. I mean, it's all in one little menu, a little dashboard, let's call it, that they will be able to access.
I'm just going to go ahead with the God bless you on that one. For all of the parents, because I was just emailing someone today, like, why do I have to go to 3 places to figure out what the assignment
Nope,
is?
but you'll have a dashboard that relates to your child.
So wonderful. And then I'm assuming, I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback on that it's going to be user-friendly, and
Yes.
we will also be able to access it from our phones.
Yes, mobile friendly, you name it, iPad, whatever device you have, you'll be able to access it.
And I know it's going to be wonderful because you picked it out, and I've seen your technological choices before, and they are always amazing. So I appreciate all of the hard work, I'm sure, that went into this.
Thank you very much.
As a board member and as a parent, I'm just going to, God bless you again.
Thanks.
Because it's going to save our parents a tremendous amount of time, especially if you're a parent with multiple children in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to multiple classes, it's multiple pages and all of those things.
Not anymore.
And I'm assuming there's also going to be like a little instructional class for the teachers.
Oh, goodness,
all
yes.
of
We
them,
have
and-
our timelines already laid out with professional development for the teachers and how to help the schools with the parents and help them understand how to obtain access and logins, you name it, and we're moving forward.
Thank you so very much from the bottom of my parental
You're
heart.
Good.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Ralston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, now that we have the new system, everybody should be able to work it, correct?
Point of information, we don't have it yet.
Well,
I'm
I
teasing.
raised my hand, I approve.
As soon as you approve it, I'm happy. Yes, it will be a system that, especially for teachers, this is one of the advantages of it. I know teachers get very frustrated right now trying to access gradebook from home.
Right.
That was one of my, when going through with this system and looking at all the systems, that I wanted to be able to have easy access from home no matter what device they have, whether it be a Mac, it didn't matter. And so with this new system, it will be easy to accessible to teachers.
Well, if I think of anything else, I'll ask you later.
I'll be here. And I just want to thank Janice Improda, my supervisor of Student Information System. She created one heck of an RFP that was pages and pages long, and she is the woman behind all this. So thank you, Janice.
And just to get back to the timing on all this, the implementation planning really begins in earnest in January, and along with that, extensive planning for professional development. This will not be something that instantly goes down. It will take a lot of time. We're anticipating this thing being up and running for the 2018-2019 school year. So as was said, we don't have it quite yet, but it is something to look forward to. And it's going to, 2019, that's right. The years go by fast. But again, this is something that will take a little bit of time, but will be well worth waiting for.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. With that, online voting is open.
Vote is 8 yes, unanimous, motion passed.
Thank you. We are now moving right along to citizens' comment time. We had 7 people sign up in advance, 5 people sign up at the door. I don't see any reason why we can't get through everybody here in the first segment and not have to use the second segment. Everyone, if you don't know the rules, I'm going to go through them real quick. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will keep the time. The monitor will illuminate over my right shoulder if I remember to hit the timer button. If not, Ms. Williams will certainly remind me. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. At 30 seconds, it'll turn yellow. It means it's time to wrap it up. At 0 seconds, it'll turn red, and it means your time is complete, and we ask you to step aside. Of course, we ask you to use proper decorum at all times. If you don't use proper decorum, obviously, we'll ask you to step aside. I'm going to go ahead and read off everybody's name. You're free to, I know it's a small boardroom today. You're free to come up, and the reserved seats are for citizens' comment time up front. And so, in order, starting with the people who signed up in advance, William Paquette, Aaron Porch, Dan Augustine, Stephen Walters, Kate Olson Flynn, Dottie Miller, Jennifer Gilly. At the door, Steve Bender, Christine Ashley, Evelyn Brumar, and Deanna Baer. All right, we will begin with William Paquette.
I am here to support Evelyn, Heidi, and Rose concerning an incident at Limestone Middle School on Election Day. I'm aware of an email in circulation from Philip Kavitz, the Associate Superintendent for Communications and Technology Services, stating that the schools were closed and therefore the school system is not responsible for behavior conducted on school property on Election Day. Mr. Cavitt's statement is in error because some schools, for example, Piney Branch Elementary, were open for school business, which included parent-teacher conferences. I'm a college professor, and I've taught at colleges and universities for over 40 years. I have a PhD in educational administration from Emory University, which is listed in the top 20 in the nation. I have taught graduate courses in teacher education for education majors, for a bachelor's or a master's degree. As a professional person who has worked for decades to educate future education professionals in the proper relationship between adults and minors, Janine Lawson committed a serious professional offense at the Limestone School on Election Day. Supervisor Lawson, in essence, committed bullying of a minor on school property. Let us not forget that elections are at the heart of American democracy and are an educational event. Schools are still school property regardless of the organizations permitted to use the facilities. I say this because of my own understanding of rules and laws governing the use of school property in places in other parts of the state of Virginia, in the states of New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. I strongly recommend that the Prince William County School Board censure Janine Lawson for her behavior which the supervisor has admitted to. This would send a strong message that school property is never the place for an adult to bully a minor about the structure of his or her family and or his or her religious beliefs at any time at school or non-school activities on school property. If Janine Lawson did this once, what is to prevent Supervisor Lawson's prejudice and bigotry from happening a second or a third time? That would be a mistake. For the school, okay, I'm sorry. That would be a mistake and would subject, I'm sorry. For the school board to remain silent means they condone Lawson's actions. That would be a mistake and would subject Prince William County to ridicule that is most certainly going to come from state and national media coverage of this event. Schools must always be places of sanctuary.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our next speaker is Aaron Porch. Ms. Porch.
Hello and good evening. I'm Erin Porch. My address is on file with the clerk. I'm here this evening to address Chairman Sawyers and his recent activity on social media. This newest fiasco is just another item in the growing list of embarrassments. Just in recent memory, you've sued school officials costing taxpayers untold amounts of money in legal defense expenses, failed to appear at multiple school board meetings, gone on vile Facebook rants. threatened the Prince William County for quality education after you failed to realize that the children shown in a photograph weren't actually your own. And you've called our president a bona fide idiot on Twitter. When you use Facebook and Twitter as a public figure, you can and should be held accountable, and we expect and deserve better of our elected officials. I don't know how Appalachian kids with money, as you called it, are raised, sir, but I come from a long line of smart, sweet, and sassy Virginians, and my mother taught me to be kind and to be respectful. She also taught me that you can disagree with someone and still respect their job. A prime example is the fact that I dislike how you're behaving as a school board chairman, but I still respect the seat you hold. I am genuinely sad for all of the missed opportunities where you could have led with a positive, constructive, and educational example, but instead have chosen to compose yourself in a negative manner where you have taught children, my child, that it is acceptable to swear and to mistreat people who think differently from you. You're the very bully that you accuse President Trump of being. Your behavior has contributed to the creation of a hostile environment where some students, teachers, and even parents feel alienated and unsafe to have and share ideas that don't align with the Democratic platform which you're pushing from your nonpartisan seat. I'm absolutely appalled at your utter lack of professionalism, and it's become evident that your political aspirations have distracted you from the job which you were elected to do. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porch. Our next speaker is Dan Augustine. Dan? Dan Augustine? Mr. Augustine.
Thank you. I'm here to tell you something that I learned, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it needs to be voiced. About a month ago, before the election, the statewide election, I was on a flight to Dallas, and I sat next to a guy who was from West Virginia. And we talked about life. I mean, what else you do on a plane? And as a part of that, we talked about politics, because that's a big election in Virginia. He knew all about it. In fact, he knew a lot about it. And he says, yeah, you guys in Virginia, you don't run your politics very well. You don't look at who you're running. I can't believe some of the people that you're running. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, do you know that you've got a guy who's going to be running for Congress the next go-around that is a sex offender in the state of West Virginia? And I said, what? I'd never heard that, never heard such a thing. And I was shocked. And he said, yeah, at a school, at a university that he was teaching, he was asked to leave and resigned. He was, like in many places, unlike NBC today, they let him go gracefully. Okay, they wanted him out, he was out. I don't know if this is true or not. All I know is what a guy told me on a plane last month. But I wanted to tell it to this group because the name that he gave me is a member of somebody who's sitting on this board. So what I ask you as a board is to take a look at this and see, investigate it. Is there any truth to this whatsoever? I think it needs to be looked at. I wish I knew the guy's name, but if you've ever flown on the plane, we don't exchange cards. We don't talk about, things. We just talk about whatever we talk about in the 2 hours or whatever it was to fly to Dallas. So I put that before you. Please take a look at it, perhaps investigate it. I leave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Stephen Walters. Mr. Walters.
My name and address is on file. Good evening. I stand before you a 25-year veteran of the United States Air Force, a retired colonel. Mr. Sawyers, your recent tweet just continues a pattern of you using this position, this office, as a springboard to bring attention to yourself for higher office, and you disrespected the flag, you disrespected your office, you disrespected the voters in this county, the members of this board, and the children, I had 4 of which, who went through Prince William County schools. As a result, I'd like to read you something because our flag cannot stand before you and defend itself. I'll take this opportunity to speak for it. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over institutions of learning. I stand guard with power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I stand confident. I am arrogant. I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is held a little higher, my colors a little truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshiped, I am saluted, I am loved, I am revered, I am respected, and I am feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. I was flown at Valley Forge, Gettysburg, Shiloh, and Appomattox. I was there at San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, in the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, and the beaches of Normandy. Guam, Okinawa, Korea, Quezon, Saigon, Vietnam know me. I was there. I led my troops. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired. But my soldiers cheered me, and I was proud. I have been burned, torn, trampled on in the streets of countries I have helped set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible. I have been soiled upon, burned, torn, and trampled in the streets of my country. And when it's done by those whom I've served in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the bonds of earth and stood watch over the uncharted frontiers of space from my vantage point on the moon. I have borne silent witness to all of America's finest hours, but my finest hours are yet to come, when I am torn into strips and used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the battlefield, when I am flown at half-mast to honor my soldier, or when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving parent at the grave of their fallen son or daughter, I am proud.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Kate Olson Flynn. Kate? Kate Olson Flynn. Going once, going twice. Kate, there she is.
Good evening, board. Good evening, Dr. Waltz. It's nice to see you all again. 'Tis the season for budgets. I'm now acquainting myself with the process of what you all go through. And I'm here representing many parents from my Lake Ridge community who are very concerned with inequity, as you all know, and I have talked about before. But I'm just going to keep on talking. So, what we're concerned about and what I'm here is to advocate that you allocate money in your CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, to rebuild and renovate Woodbridge Senior High School. Now, all the parents that I represent and that I'm here on behalf of, I know many have written you letters lately, and so you've heard the words of things that are wrong with our school and that many things that are also right. And we're all advocating for equity, providing every child and student in Prince William County and in Lake Ridge with equal educational opportunities and experiences to achieve and succeed here in our county. And that's your job, how to provide every student with the same opportunities. And we see this very glaring differences at the high school level where we live. For example, and it's most glaring now since Colgan High School has been built in 2016. And our last time Woodbridge Senior High School was renovated was in 2006. So we see these glaring examples in our face when we go to games, when we attend performances, and it's very difficult for people, for the community in which I live, to see these differences and not say, why can't these things get accomplished? Why can't this be renovated? If I choose to have my child go to this school, they should have the same opportunities as the kids that go to Colgan. So here's an example. Colgan High School, we have heard, maybe this isn't true, that the school has phone chargers in their locker rooms, in their lockers. Woodbridge, sometimes we have Wi-Fi. They have an amphitheater for outdoor performances. We have a sunken yard that doesn't drain very well. They have natural light and open spaces. All of our classrooms, none of our classrooms have windows. They're all strangely configured based on its 1974 design. They have courtyard spaces and current technologies. We have lack of computers and no spaces outside. So this is what we want. We want equity. We want, and it doesn't just pertain to brick and mortar. I'm not just even saying that because since 2016, our specialty program was taken away, and we want that. We want to have some specialty back at Woodbridge Senior High School.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dottie Miller. Ms. Miller.
Good evening, Chairman Sawyers and members of the board. My name is Dottie Miller, and my information and address has been filed by the clerk. As a former teacher, wife of a veteran, and mother of a West Point Army Ranger who was deployed several times in Operation Iraq Freedom, I am appalled that you would go out of your way to disrespect the president by calling him a bona fide idiot, and to encourage our students to not participate in saying a pledge that honors our Constitution and the brave men and women who have given their lives and sacrificed so much to protect our freedom. Chairman Sawyers, you of all people should be a role model to the students in Prince William County. Your recent behavior stirs me to do nothing less than right here and sing the national anthem, and that's what I'm going to do. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Gilley. Jennifer?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Gilley. My address is on file. I sent an email out after the last board meeting because I was so excited at the board meeting that I didn't even get to finish what I had to say. And I see that many of you actually got to read my email and attend Woodbridge High School football game. They are now going to the state semifinals. I'm very proud because my son is one of the kickers, and I have another son that's on the team as well. Of course, I'm here to talk about Woodbridge Senior High School with Ms. Olson. We're a group of parents that got together. My children are at the school now, 2 of them. I have a senior and a sophomore. I have an 8th grader that will be there next year, and I have a 3rd grader. She was with me last week. I, too, know that the capital improvement program is on the budgets. We need money for Woodbridge High School. I know Mr. Sawyer came to a meeting, to one of the games. I know Mr. Deutsch came to a game, and I proudly said, join us in the men's room to see the troughs. And I can only assume that they went there. I don't know, but we have troughs in the men's restroom. again, I don't go in there, but it's one of the only high schools in the county that has not been renovated just for the sports leagues, the sports teams. Many of the other teams, schools have many, many bathrooms. Yes, it's just a bathroom, but we had people standing in line after halftime waiting to get into the game this last weekend. If we were playing another state, another regional group, they would have come in and laughed, like many of the Hilton players family members came out of the bathroom saying, "Did you see that bathroom? That's ridiculous." It is ridiculous. There's really no reason that the school is the way it is. But we're working on it. I know many families have sent you emails to compare and tell you what they need in the school, whether it's for the band or for the specialty programs. Our specialty program, I know Ms. Olson-Flynn told you, was taken away. We were not here that long ago when that was taken away, but we now have a nice renovated auditorium without a specialty program. Our specialty program is the cosmetology program that we've been told is starting to get renovations. However, the cosmetology students have said nothing is happening yet. So I know it takes a while, but we need money to come back to Woodbridge High School. I know you've received letters and emails from parents who are concerned. We have inconsistent Wi-Fi throughout the building, limited computers. We need a lot of stuff for the kids at Woodbridge High School. We need equity in all of the schools. We need all of our children to have the world-class education that Prince William is promising. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're on to the sign up at the door sheet now. That'll be, just to remind everybody of the order here, it'll be Steve Bender, Christine Ashley, Evelyn Brumar, and Deanna Bear. Mr. Bender, the microphone is yours. I believe that is now Dr. Waltz's role at this point, so. No, I have no idea. One end or the other, I guess. It doesn't really matter. Sorry, Dr. Waltz. He was closer to you. I apologize.
Okay. Steve Bender, my address is on file. First thing I'm going to talk about, we already voted on it. It's on the consent agenda tonight. Nobody talked about it, but we passed that 5-year agreement with George Mason University on athletic training. They're providing additional graduate students to help out, I think, in the middle school. I haven't been able to find out how many are actually participating. Back when I was helping Mr. Trenham write the concussion policy, it was only 2. And we still have a problem with the number of athletic trainers that we have in our schools. Middle schools have almost none. We only have 1 at each of the high schools. I've told some of you the story before about my daughter, who was a senior in 2007 at Stonewall. Trainer left town, so she was told to go cover the soccer games when they were playing Battlefield. This was a rivalry where the seniors had all been at Stonewall together. That's nuts. You don't put a high school senior as a athletic trainer on a soccer game, on any game. We don't have enough trainers. We need more. So hearing about this coming up on the agenda, I looked at the policy. I talked to my doctor. He said there's some new protocols out that were new to me, and they're not in our policy yet. I looked at the policy. It's supposed to be reviewed annually. It was last reviewed June of last year, so it's overdue. The regulation that goes along with it, according to the policy, should also be reviewed annually. It's on a 3-year review cycle stated in the regulation. That needs to be corrected. The other thing I did is I talked to one of the ATCs, who will remain nameless, and I learned that there are several other issues. The paper, by the way, is on the next topic. Some of you are looking at. There are several other issues that are need to be addressed. You guys should familiarize yourselves with them. Apparently, ATCs are cut off from speaking to the medical advisor on the concussion committee. They have to go through the head of nursing. Some principals don't like the idea of doing staff training, so staff training is falling through the cracks. There are a lot of schools out there where the staff are not receiving their annual update on how concussions impact the classroom. There's also apparently a problem with the heat injury medical protocol that they are prohibited from doing, even though it may be a life-saving matter at football practices in August. So next time you guys are at a sporting event like the state semifinal, go find the Woodbridge athletic trainer or one of the others and talk to them about what their life's like these days in the schools. Second topic, the textbook proposal that's on tonight.
This is from 2010, this article. The group that is providing most of the books on tonight's list is this group. This is what this article was about them. And I just want you guys to make sure that everything that's talked about in that article from 2010 doesn't apply. I hope you'll let me run over a couple of seconds because you, sir, that was a hatchet job on Mrs. Lawson. That was a hatchet job on this guy up here. I don't know if it's true or not.
Thank you, sir.
This isn't the time to come and bring that kind of crap up.
Thank you,
I
Mr. Fender.
apologize.
Our next, I lost my list. This is what happens when people hand out sheets on the dais. Yeah, Christine Ashley is our next speaker. Christine.
Hello. My name is Christine Ashley, and I guess I'm going to be bringing some stuff up that this man said
Lower the mic a little
shouldn't be
bit.
brought up. I'm going to be talking about Janine Lawson and how Miss Rose Bermar was treated while working at a pool at Prince William County Schools. Now, I have been to a lot of board meetings where sexual orientation discrimination is in the policy, where kids should be protected. Rose Bermar is being raised by two women that are legally married in the state of Virginia. Gay marriage is legal. Okay. So last time, and it's legal in all 50 states. It is legal. Okay, so they adopted Rose Bermar when she was 9 years old, and they are beautiful, loving moms. I know them from church, go to church every Sunday. They are raising her to be a wonderful woman, a wonderful adult. And Janine Lawson thinks that it would be nice to go up to a 15-year-old girl and say to her, you deserve a mother and a father in a biblical sense. Now imagine you are Rose Bermar, who has been raised by these two wonderful women, and imagine how you would feel, okay? Rose is 15. She's standing there, and I'd like to put it out there, I date women. I have a 10-year-old son that knows I date women, and I fear that my son could be targeted and bullied in Prince William County Schools because my son talks about my life, okay? I don't mean to get emotional here, but when the sexual orientation got put into the policy, I was relieved. I actually, I saw everybody in purple shirts and red shirts. I saw pictures being taken of people without my permission, and I went outside and I was relieved because I thought my son will be safe here, okay? What Rose Bermar went through is discrimination. It is a clear cut of discrimination. That opinion was told to Rose to hurt her, okay? That's why it was said to her. And then on top of that, Lawson watched, I believe, two other women corner Rose Bermar right outside there and yelling, talking about this is all this other stuff, okay?
I'm going to ask you to step aside with that, okay? Thank you very much. The next speaker is Miss Evelyn Brumar. Evelyn. Sorry, Miss Brumar. I apologize.
On Election Day, November 7th, at Gainesville Middle School, my daughter, who was 15, and a friend were passing out sample ballots. I was overseeing 12 of Brentsville's polling precincts while making it a priority to check in on the kids. The atmosphere was jubilant, and the other two women passing out opposing sample ballots were kind towards my daughter and her friend. They appreciated the real-life civic lessons I was teaching them. On my last round back, I noticed my child was alone, surrounded and cornered by 4 women. I heard aggressive language being used. I overheard one woman yelling, "That's some liberal BS." I jumped in, facing the gang, breaking up their oppression over my daughter. The women took a few steps back and turned away from me. I walked over and started lecturing them on the inappropriate behavior. Their combined verbal defense for bullying my daughter was, "She started it." That is when I noticed the 4th woman was Janine Lawson. Leaving the school, my daughter shared what Janine said to her after she shared that she had 2 moms. "Oh, you have one of them. And every child deserves a father and a mother in the biblical sense." Last week, I went to personally address Lawson at the BS Board of County Supervisor meetings. I asked Lawson for an apology, and so did other members of this community. She chose to double down on her stance and to downplay her inappropriate behavior, calling it pleasant. Her perception is not the issue. It is the reality from the effect of her behavior had on us that's the issue. Otherwise, we would still find the N-word pleasant. As adults, we should be encouraging the children of our community to do what they love, modeling kindness and respect, and stepping in when we witness one of our own being attacked, which was the opposite of Lawson's behavior. This is Adoption Month. There are many kids in foster care. They need safe places to heal, be loved appropriately, to have a chance to become strong pillars of their community. Having been a foster parent, I know the rigors of taking courses of mental health, first aid, law, doing background checks and home inspections before a child is placed. One has no idea the traumas these children have suffered at the hands of their biblical families. I was blessed with the opportunity to adopt one of my foster children after she left my care and was back in her biblical family's home, just to suffer more abuse and trauma. My wife and I had to work harder than most, not being allowed to adopt through Virginia, because people like Lawson who shared her homophobic views. If we truly have the children's best interests in mind and at heart, we as a community need to act like it. We must send a message that inclusivity outweighs divisiveness, that every child is worth protecting, that attacking a child's self-worth and loving family is unacceptable, especially when it comes from one of our elected officials. And just a side note, my wife is retired Navy. I served alongside her during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. All of the dedication, none of the benefits. I am Latina. I'm also, like I said, a foster mom. I'm an adoptive mom. And I'm an advocate for people who don't have these rights and abilities to fight for themselves. And that's why I'm here talking to you. That's why I talked at the Board of County Supervisors meeting. And I'm just going to keep on talking to whoever will listen, because we have to make this right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Deanna Bear. And our final speaker, I should say, Ms. Bear.
Yes, my address is on record. And I am an adoptive parent. And my mom was adopted when she was 12, having been taken away from her family, her wonderful biological family. As a community and as human beings, we recognize the harmful effects of bullying. We train our teachers to correct it. Our school board has policies against it. This is the Virginia one, not even the Prince William County one. We call authorities when we see parents doing it. We put public service ads on TV to stop it. We count on our elected officials to fight against bullying. We especially do not condone our elected officials being bullies, and certainly not to bully children. Yet that is exactly what Prince William County Board of Supervisors Representative Janine Lawson did. She bullied a child at a Prince William County school. She verbally attacked a child in public on the property of a Prince William County school board. Not any child, but a child who was not lucky enough to have been born into a loving, caring home of a biological mother and father. No, a child who was not safe with her biological parents and so had to suffer being put into a government foster care system. A child who was then blessed with a loving home provided by her two mothers, mothers who see that she is fed, mothers see that she has health care, mothers who see that she does her homework and that do not allow her to wear makeup as a young teenager. Two mothers that give her love and structure in a forever home. The Prince William County Board of Supervisors has declared this adoption month, and this family is an ideal adopted family. I know that because I know this child and her mothers. We attend the same church. One of her mothers sings in the church choir. The child sings in the youth choir. I've been in the home, see the love that her parents give her. She's a beautiful child inside and out and is being allowed to flourish as all children should. I see the Board of Supervisors, and I see a woman who thinks nothing of attacking a child, who thinks nothing of trying to destroy a child's safe zones and family. I see hate. I see selfishness. I see someone who does not live up to Jesus' teaching. I see an elected official who does not respect the school board and its policies. I see someone who is not fit to hold elective office. I see Supervisor Janine Lawson. I ask that this school board, as a minimum, censor Janine Lawson for conduct unbecoming an elected official and for verbally abusing a child on school property. And it's very important that the school board make sure that their policies do always cover everybody on that. And I wish the woman before had sung the second verse of the.
Thank you very much. let's see, we are on to, that completes citizens' comment time. That brings us to item 13.01, which is history and social science textbook adoption. I'm waiting for Miss Williams. You good? I'm sorry. One second, Ms. Goss. I apologize. Make sure we get settled in. All right. If I'm going to ask for order in the room, if you're exiting, please do so quietly. We're on item 13.01, history and social science textbook adoption. I don't know why I'm struggling with that today. Textbook adoption. Ms. Goss.
Good evening, Chairman Sawyers, school board members, and Dr. Waltz. Tonight we are here to present the final recommendations for our History and Social Science Textbook Adoption Committee. At this time, I would like to invite Jeff Gervin, our Supervisor of History and Social Science, to come to the podium to review the textbook adoption process and to share the specific recommendations from the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Goss. Good evening, Chairman Sawyers, school board members, and Dr. Waltz. Tonight I'm going to present to you the History and Social Science textbook adoption recommendations. I'm having trouble saying that tonight myself, Chairman Sawyers. Review the timeline here. Make sure I get that. Try the other one. Oh, there we go. A review of the timeline here is outlined in our county textbook adoption regulation 653-2. We'll show where we are in the process. Your approval of the timeline and criteria on April 20th, 2016 began the process in earnest. We formally started our textbook selection process with the orientation meeting on May 10th, 2016, when we reviewed the criteria, the process, and formed subcommittees. The criteria included several aspects, which include reviewing for scholarship and historical accuracy, freedom from bias, and focus on multiple perspectives, and these things being evident in the text. Committee members began receiving materials in June and continued their review through September of 2016. With the delay, however, in releasing of the approved revisions to the 2017 History and Social Science standards, and the fact that the Virginia Department of Education had at first decided not to conduct their own textbook adoption, statewide adoption process, that effect had on publishers was that they were not necessarily prepared for when Prince William County initially started their textbook process. We had asked them ahead of time, obviously, before we started the process, and they had assured us that they would have review materials prepared, but it slowly became evident as teachers and committee members informed me that they were not receiving quality review materials. A lot of things were not based on the new standards and were actually like national textbooks and things like that. So basically, in September of 2016, we asked for and received a postponement to this process to give publishers more time to prepare quality review materials for the committee. And we were then able to resume this process in June of this year, 2017. At the beginning of the process, we had an open application soliciting reviewers, and I'm happy to report that we had a total of 62 committee members that participated in the review process. Public displays of the textbooks were set up in 3 library locations throughout the county, Potomac Library in the east, Bull Run Library in the west, and here at the Kelly Leadership Center Professional Library for the central part of the county. Community Relations advertised this public review period, and news releases through all media and textbooks remained on display until November 3rd. Therefore, tonight's recommendations represent the results of these many steps and processes and having the reviews of all the committee members ready. And we have a few of them here tonight, if you don't mind if I ask them to stand to be honored. Those of you in the committee, please stand. I have a few. I want to thank you all for your commitment and time in this process. Okay, so we're going to share the textbook recommendations for you now. Basically, I have these listed, the courses starting with K through 5 chronologically, and then we will go to them individual content, and then the very end of the recommendations are the advanced studies courses, programs. This is the recommendations for kindergarten through 3rd grade. So recommendations for Virginia Studies and the North American Geography course. These are the recommendations for our United States history courses for middle school and high school. These are the recommendations for our world history and geography courses at the high school level. These are the civics, government, economics recommendations, which include middle school and high school. These are some of our electives, psychology and sociology. And then here we get into our advanced courses. This is the AP, the advanced placement, starting with the pre-AP world, going through world history, and then AP US history. And continue with advanced placement, we have AP European history, and then our government courses for advanced placement. And then the last part of our advanced placement, we have economics, psychology, and human geography. And then onto the Cambridge program with our ACE programs, world history and United States history. Continue with Cambridge with our international history, economics, and psychology. And sociology and our global perspectives courses. And then last our IB courses, International Baccalaureate, with our world history and our government for IB. And global politics and our history 1 of the Americas and history 2, which is topics in 20th century history. And then IB geography, psychology, social and cultural anthropology, and economics. So in summary, again, I would like to thank first the History and Social Science textbook committee members for their many, and the many central and school staff who collaborated in this process, and community members as well, all of whom contributed countless hours to the process to ensure that our students have the best quality textbook materials for history and social science and world-class learning experience. Now, again, just to reiterate on some of the criteria, because I probably should have put it in this PowerPoint, but it was from the initial presentation in 2016. One of the key things we really focused on was scholarship and historical accuracy, and making sure that the best of the best in the country and in the different areas of political science, history, economics, geography, and government and civic and so forth were involved in the textbook. So it's one of the things that reviewers really paid a high attention to. And then again, as well as freedom from bias and looking more at multiple perspectives being evident in the textbooks. So in conclusion, I want to thank you, Chairman Sawyers, school board members, and Dr. Waltz for your continued support through this process and in enhancing history and social science instruction for our students.
Thank you, sir. Anybody want a bite at that apple? Ms. Jessie.
Okay, I have several questions. Were there certain rubrics used for rating the materials? And what do those rubrics contain?
Yeah, there was a criteria, and it had basically from the criteria that looked at, first of all, the social studies, the history and social studies program. So looking at habits of mind that we are trying to have our social studies students involved in, the curriculum from the state and from our county curriculum, and that is being matched in the textbooks. And then it got into some of the things I'd mentioned earlier, historical accuracy, showing the building of skills, freedom from bias, trying to think of all the things I didn't, actually do have something here on that. Let me grab that, there we go. Logical sequence of instruction, quality and variety of opportunities to support teachers and students, equity, technological integration, and teacher support and cost.
Okay.
And the rubrics basically had that, and then the committee members would use that to review.
Alignment with the curriculum and alignment with the SOLs.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So those things were considered. What about the readability level?
Yeah, the readability, that was something that the teachers definitely paid a lot of attention to. For instance, in some of the elementary school levels, some of the readers that they are actually putting forward for our committee is putting forward for recommendations have different levels of reading. So it's the same text, but it is written in different reading levels to help struggling readers. And then at the high school and middle school level, teachers looked at the supporting reading materials in the teacher editions that could support struggling readers. And then what did the books have in relation to maps, images, graphs, things that could help entice and invite a reader into the reading. So that was all considered in what they were doing. But the adoption was on a grade level text is what they were looking at.
I think my concern, of course, is at the high school level. At the elementary level, you're concerned also, but at the high school level where you have special education students and you have students with serious reading problems who cannot, just delineate and navigate the text of a seventh grade reading level. So how varied is the reading levels, and are there some technological supporting materials that would help those students?
Yeah, there are. So with the books, majority of the books would come with, if depending on the number of purchase, but most of the publishers offer a digital copy if you buy a printed text. And many of those have those readable programs that will read the text to students, and then the teacher editions will come with sentence starters, content vocabulary focus that will support struggling readers, and again, a lot of strategies and support to work with those students who struggle with reading at the level, because definitely the textbooks are written at for high school, for instance, they're going to be written at a 9th to 10th grade reading level. In middle school is usually around 6th to 7, so they're not going to be written at a lower level for those students, but there are support materials for the teachers and students.
And so when you did your comparison in terms of cost, did they offer, did you consider a digital versus the paperback version? And was there a cost comparison done?
The textbook companies are still at the textbook, the digital price is the same as the printed price. Whereas if you buy the printed, you get a free digital ebook, again, for most of the textbook companies.
And so are we purchasing the digital version also?
If if the recommendations move forward in those, yes, we will be doing that with the publishers.
Okay. Generally when we're presented with materials from during our open session where citizens comment, but tonight I just have some concerns about the materials that we've received here. Have you looked at Five Ponds and whether or not some of the concerns that were generated tonight have a degree of accuracy and at all?
We have, yes, and I was actually on the social studies team back with the last textbook adoption in 2010, and so I understand where you're talking about with the 4th grade book that had some historical errors in the book, and those books were pulled and actually pulled off the textbook adoption. Since then, however, Five Ponds has doubled their efforts. They have an entire team of scholars, which they did not have in 2010. When they did the books, for instance, in 2010, they wrote the book. The publishers and so forth, they did not have a team of historians, political science, geography, and so now they have all of those scholars, and they have Professor Dr. Weinstein from Virginia Tech, who basically was the executive reviewer who reviewed all of their materials. And so they put much more effort into scholarly and accuracy, and the teams of committee members who reviewed those books, were made aware of that that had happened back in 2010, because when in our initial meeting, we talked heavily about, please make sure you're reading these books for accuracy, not just looking for, hey, the book's appealing, it's got great images, it's got great maps, but no, we were looking to make sure that they are done with scholars involved and that the content is accurate, and those changes have been made in the Five Ponds books.
So the concerns that were expressed tonight, you've already addressed those?
Yes, I do not have any concerns moving these books forward, because they are, those concerns and issues from 2010 have been resolved, at least in my opinion and in the committee's opinion.
Okay. And finally, I'm an elementary person, and so I need to ask a question that I know you're going to say, well, who didn't know that? You talk about advanced courses, you talk about IB, and then you talk about Cambridge. 3 different sort of advanced types of situations in classrooms or student placement. What is the difference, as I looked at all the books, what is the difference in the materials used by advanced versus IB versus Cambridge? In a nutshell, what does that all mean to us in general?
Well, for some of the courses, you actually, I think, see that they've recommended the same books in some of the courses, but basically you have a different, in a kind of way, you have philosophy on education and historical study, and so you have each of those programs look at it a little differently. I will say that advanced placement has made a lot of changes recently to kind of get in line with Cambridge and IB, which have always focused on teaching kids more about historical thinking. So it's also about the content, but teaching kids to think like a historian, to understand and evaluate source material and really get into history and learn it through an inquiry-based model more than just here's facts I'm going to tell you that you can repeat back to me. So that's really, I mean, I'm not saying they're different, but they've all kind of focused towards that. And again, IB and Cambridge sort of had always done that, and the advanced placement had that as well.
So all of these materials, even for regular kids in regular books, there are some project-based learning, there's some hands-on types of activities instead of just factual types of regurgitation of information, of historical facts.
Correct, ma'am, and yes, and our unit guides that we've created with teacher groups and so forth throughout the county, those are embedded in our curriculum, and our curriculum focuses, just as the 2015 standards have been revised to focus on a content literacy, basically rich way of going about social studies and moving away from, hey, we just want you to memorize.
And finally, the cost. If I'm a principal in a school and these new textbooks are there, how do I pay for this, and can you give me some sense of what this is going to cost a school? Because schools are site-based, so are they going to pay for the materials?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yeah, they have an allocation.
They will have an allocation. Okay.
It's part of what they get in their allocation for.
Okay. And the cost? Just maybe one set of books.
It does vary. I will say the high school books are more expensive. So you're looking probably at a range of between $80 and $90 a book, whereas middle school is about $35 and elementary is cheaper. But again, the packages vary on how many books you buy to get free student editions and free tech. They really try to get you on the teacher editions because those are like double the price of the book, but depending on how many books you buy, you get a free teacher edition with those books. So,
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. It's Ms. Ralston, then Mr. Wilk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead, I'll let you. I just would like to know, because in my district it's something like 68 different home languages. So what is this, and how do my limited English speakers, how do they work through this process?
Well, I will say for the textbook companies, they do not, unfortunately, offer a lot of support for all those languages. For Spanish, they do. They'll have Spanish editions, Spanish glossaries. So they do not have a lot of translated materials in other languages. And so therefore, for those type materials, again, as I had mentioned to Ms. Jessie, The read aloud capability is done in a way that can help them. And again, the support in the teacher edition books and in the other insulated materials that come with that gives support for teachers who are working with students who do not speak or not native English speakers. And so it does not just focus on Spanish.
So this would throw those students back some.
These books would draw them back some?
If they don't understand everything in English, is there...
Hi, Ms. Ralston.
Hi.
The question you raise is one actually that's a challenge in all disciplines, not just social studies.
Right.
So I would say that this would be a generalized concern that wouldn't be unique to a textbook adoption, say in this subject area. So it wouldn't be the burden of just Mr. Gervin, but all of our supervisors work with our teachers to make sure that in addition to what we have available in our core textbooks, that we utilize a wide variety of supplemental resources and reading supports for students who are struggling to acquire language. But I dare say that this is not something that's a unique challenge to social studies or social studies textbooks in and of themselves. It's something you'd run into in literature courses and in all of those areas.
Well, when I think about this, and I think about the number of kids at Garfield and in the IB program, so they're in there and they're expected to be able to continue through to 12th grade graduation, right? They're lucky that some kind of way they pick up on the English language and move forward. Don't you think maybe there should be, hello?
I just want to be real careful. We do want, I know we're not up for a motion here, but we do kind of want to stay on topic. This is specifically about the history and social science textbook, not about language barriers and things like that. So
well, you can't read the history book if you can't speak
I understand,
the
but
language.
that like Mr. Bassett just said, that's a completely different issue and a different part. This is simply about the text. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just trying to make sure we stay a little bit focused on what we're doing. Dr. Waltz, you'd like to say something?
Let me just add, in terms of the acquisition of this new material, in terms of the students being able to learn. So we have various levels of second language EL services. And so there will be staff members to help any student that has a language acquisition challenge as a part of their learning. So in fact, I'm going to give a little bit of a report during my superintendent's time about the progress we made with our second language learners. So yes, they will have support as is required, and their level of that support is dependent upon their current acquisition of the English language, but they will have that support as is needed in each and every school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. Thank you, Dr. Waltz. Mr. Wilk.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Gervin, Mr. Bassett. It was a unique experience to talk about this, and also having the pleasure to work under both of you as a social studies teacher. So wanted to talk about a couple things on this and a few questions. I know Ms. Jessie brought up the digital subscription. I wanted to know also about online access. Are these, does each book come with a code for a kid to get in and go on a portal online and have additional access on top of any type of disc or digital?
Yeah, again, depending on the textbook, the majority of them offer an ebook with a printed book.
Would most of them be compatible with a smartphone or a tablet or something?
Yes. Yeah, and we've already had the technology. We've already had the materials reviewed and so forth. So
from that lens too.
Yeah,
as well.
the lens we do want to get to would I mean, there would be more once we decide we're going forward. So we would look more into it. But we have had the initial review that these materials are compatible with our systems.
The role of teacher input. I know you had teachers on the committee. Were history teachers or social studies teachers across the county surveyed? I mean, was it site by site how they got input? I mean, because I imagine there are variations from how often teachers are using textbooks. Mm-hmm. I, for one, never used it. Never. As long as you met the framework with the pacing guide and you did your SOL objectives, there was no need. And I guess in the fact that with site-based management, principals gave their teachers the discretion on how to handle that type of situation. So my question is, how many teachers were factored into this role of the usage of textbooks on their daily lessons or activities?
We did not survey the teachers on textbook use. Again, the way we're looking at this, this is one of many tools for them to have available if they choose to use that tool. So we did not start by surveying the usage of textbooks in the classroom.
Whereas, will the purchasing, Ms. Chessie brought up a good point about the purchasing site by site with the allocation of money. When the principals make that decision, will that be a decision that they get to determine based off of feedback from their social studies teachers? For example, Mr. Wilk and Mr. Ship and Mr. Woody don't use textbooks at all in 8th grade. Can we pass on that or get a class set for them? And maybe my 7th grade teachers want to give every kid a book or something like that. So are there variations? Are we ordering one textbook for every student across the county when it comes to social studies?
Mr. Gervin.
Dr. Waltz, first of all, Mr. Bixby, are you okay over there? Just want to double check. You're getting a little color. All right, just want to make sure everything's all right.
Mr. Bigsby, you know I had some of the top scores in the county, so, you know.
He seemed a little sweaty when Mr. Wilk started talking about not using books. Just to make sure everybody's all right, make sure everybody's peaceful. Dr. Waltz.
So if I could weigh in briefly, and then I'll let you add anything you wish to add, Mr. Gervin. First and foremost, for those of you who may not be intimately involved in how the curriculum works, the state lays out what students should know and be able to do and understand in the standards of learning in each of the content areas and each of the courses that we teach. So there's a state requirement, there are state standards that students are expected to pass. That being said, there's not a directive in terms of how that is to be done. And as Mr. Gerwin said, the textbook is one of many tools that a teacher may or may not choose to use in order to accomplish that. That being said, one of the requirements that comes from me personally is if a parent and/or student requests a textbook that this school board has adopted, they are entitled to have a textbook. So that being said, yes, there are some teachers that use other materials, copies of authentic documents, run-off articles, short sets of other books, and so forth. But if we do have an adopted text and a student or parent wants their child to have that text, we require them to be provided.
Following up with that, Dr. Waltz, do we keep, my goal is not to kill books here. I mean, my goal, I've seen districts much smaller than ours, 1/20th of a size, phase away textbooks and go all digital learning. That is not my goal. I realize we're looking at apples versus oranges. But I'm just curious, the long-term trends, are we keeping record of, how often parents in a school might be requesting these books? Because if I have, 3 parents out of my class set of 170 kids requesting textbooks, looking down the road for cost efficiency, isn't a possibility of phasing this back in the amount of quantity that we're purchasing. That's all I'm looking at with this kind of logic and thought, kind of the long-term impact of potentially saving money by not purchasing so many books.
We get a state textbook allocation. And the state has their curriculum reviews on a cycle. They're generally every 5 years. So we anticipate what adoptions are going to be coming down the pike, and then each school is allocated that amount of money in order to help them with the textbooks. Now again, let's say an entire department decides that's not what they're going to use, that their primary source documents and other things are going to be used. The school, the department, under the direction of the department chair, should go through a process whereby those decisions are made.
Okay.
One of the things that we're closely monitoring are other school divisions that have moved certain content areas away from the textbook to full digital. Mm-hmm. And there are some interesting challenges still to be worked out. One is that, as Mr. Gerwin said, we don't get a price break. So in fact, we get more if we buy the book. Because we get the digital access as well. But there are school systems who are experiencing some challenges with, let's say they have 3 high school students and 1 computer in the home. So, there's some interesting challenges with the technology as well. Some families have limited access to, literally having the ability to access Wi-Fi and that sort of thing, and we have ways of helping them as well. But, you know, are we interested in moving away and saving the trees? I would say yes. That's why we're not requiring every student or every school or every classroom to have a complete set of textbooks.
Okay, that answers that question. Okay, thank you. Questions about the book themselves. You mentioned inquiry-based. As we know, you guys know, with the high school, the ultimate goal is when our kids are taking the AP or pre-AP, we're doing the DBQ format of the essay structure and the writing and incorporating writing at all levels, especially trying to integrate writing in social studies so that it's not all just viewed as it's a language arts English. Oh, see, Mr. Bixby's, oh, now he likes me. He's got it. He's got it. Okay. Are the books, the early even books that we were talking about, kindergarten and early inquiry and discovery, is there a focus on looking at historical artifacts, primary resources, and incorporating essays and structure like that into all these different levels?
Yes, there is. Yeah, and we have, I mean, again, using the books as a tool, using the textbook as, you know, teaching students this is a source, not the source, not, you know, it's an interpretation. Teaching students, I mean, history, Greek-wise, comes from the word inquire. I mean, that's what it should be. It's an inquiry-based subject. And so moving towards really a focus on students engaging deeply in history, the book's being used again as a tool. So if you want to establish some background knowledge or establish some context, teacher may use the book to have some students do some reading on that and then augment that with primary source material or things that the teacher themselves has to, again, deepen the understanding of the content.
Looking at some of the stuff that I know that teachers benefited definitely from with these textbook packages and looking out for them, are we looking, or do these quantities and amounts come with things like primary document replica activities, resources for teachers, and workbook activities if they wanted to incorporate them into the classroom? And then, of course, I know there's always the add-ons of, you know, especially new teachers appreciate having the posters or the images to potentially put up on a wall where they don't have the money as a new teacher to decorate their class or something. Do these kind of packages and purchases come with all kind of the goodies, I guess, for teachers in the schools?
Posters I'm not aware of, but the source material,
no posters?
Yes.
Wow, they're really...
No posters that I'm aware of. Can check on that
Mr.
for you. But source material, yes. And then primary source images and maps. And we, again, I just want to add it, we have over the years, we have supported that highly. We have bought DBQ binders, primary source packets for the schools. Just last summer, we bought a series of biographies for the elementary school level to help with the nonfiction. Not that the schools are not doing that, just as,
oh no,
hey, you know, I want
like magazine
help,
subscriptions,
you know,
different activities and add-ons.
So
yeah.
there's that push, the literacy base, and again, the textbooks. You know, I don't want to keep saying the same thing, but augmenting that is one tool that the teacher can use to support what they're doing.
Awesome, thank you guys. I appreciate the work.
Just for the record, this is the school board, so we see the same thing all the time. And Mr. Bixby, just for note, Mr. Wilk didn't use the textbook, was upset about posters. I would just like both of those to be noted for whatever reason that you may need to note them. Okay, thank you. Ms. Williams and Ms. Satterwhite.
I'm curious to know, because we're at a place in time in history where digital access and information is quickly becoming the primary source, and I know especially having a teenager, picking up an actual book is sort of like a challenge among God. With this, I understand there's a digital component to it, but my curiosity is whether the digital source material is mobile friendly versus like a desktop, because mobile application and internet access has actually superseded our computer desktop uses, and developers develop materials for mobile access before they develop the desktop access, as I just learned. Thank you, VSBA. We had a speaker from Apple there. So, and I also know that, you know, our youth are not, you know, participating in picking up books, most of them, not, because there's always an exception to every rule. Do we know if the digital material is mobile friendly versus computer friendly? Do we have that type of information?
We do, yeah. Majority, again, of these books, they when they sent their information to us, flat out stated, these are, you know, iPhones, tablets. So they listed a whole bunch of, you know, that kind of material, devices that can be used to access.
Okay, that's
their
good, 'cause,
ebooks.
like, Dr. Welch said, we have students that may not have a computer at home but have a phone.
Yes.
And that, you could pick up Wi-Fi anywhere, just about.
And plus, it's good for teaching. A teacher can, if all the kids have it, or that day they brought their own device to school day, right? The teacher can say, hey, let's bring that up, quickly and so forth, and they can focus on a certain part of the reading as well. Okay. So it's.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to your team. I know that you've done a lot of extensive work, and I could tell from Mr. Bassett's expressions every time we ask a question, he's like chomping at the bit with the answer. So I just wanted to say thank you to that, because I know that textbooks is not an easy task, and everyone doesn't enjoy them. I never liked any of my history ones, but that was a different time period, so I've seen our upgrades, and they are much better, so thank you.
Well, he is the director of student learning, but used to be the social studies supervisor, right? So he always is
he's
ready to
my
jump
foreign
in,
language
so.
guy. Every time I see him, he's got something translated in about 8 or 9 different languages, getting ready to roll out. So I'm always appreciative, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Satterwhite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much to you and all the committee members who worked so hard on this. And I appreciate the attention to the Five Ponds Press issue. And I was actually talking to Mr. Bassett about that earlier today. Back in 2010, I was one of those committee members. And Ms. Jessie, you said something about the readability. And there was an issue with Five Ponds Press in 2010, but it wasn't readability. And those were beautifully done textbooks, very readable, and for elementary especially, which is what I was looking at then, they looked amazing, and they read beautifully. So I'm guessing we're looking at that same level, except as you've mentioned to Ms. Jessie, that the history has actually been backed up now.
Correct, ma'am. Yeah, they still look, and that's one of the reasons that teachers gravitate towards them. They're very inviting to a reader. They have a lot of those, visual cues that can help, especially struggling readers, but readers in general, to see these images and these graphs and maps. And as Mr. Wilk had asked about, they even have primary source excerpts and so forth. But they do it in a way that's very visually captivating, and that's one of the reasons that I know, talking to those committee members, they chose that. But we definitely looked at the scholarship and accuracy. In fact, I know when they first submitted, I contacted Five Ponds and said, look, I need you to send me some stuff on this, because I'm not even going to give this to the committee to start looking at if we're going to start going down this road where these are not accurate, if you've not changed your practice, basically. And they had, again, in my opinion, done a wonderful job of owning up to that and putting forward now the money to make sure they had a good review team to go over the accuracy and the scholarship of those textbooks.
Okay, I appreciate hearing that. Thank you. Also, I had a question, too. In the presentation, it referenced in one place the final textbook adoption report. Are we going to be receiving that report? Is that in a form that it's for school board members' eyes?
I believe so. Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was.
Thank you, Ms. Satterwhite. Anyone else? Mr. Deutsch.
Thank you very much. So we got the Washington Post article, and of course I started Googling. Looks like the Virginia Department of Education investigated some things, had some reviews in 2011 concerning some of the issues that we've raised. And so those types of things have been addressed. The question, though, looks like the Five Ponds Press specializes in Virginia social studies as a curriculum focus.
They do. I mean, they take the framework from the state and they write their book around it.
Okay.
That's pretty much what they do.
Are there other publishers that are competing in that field of Virginia social studies curriculum?
Not solely like that. I mean, the other textbook companies that approve. I mean, that's one of the things. That's one of the criteria is that you've made adjustments to your books. It's not a national book. It's set to the Virginia standards. And again, that was what our issue was in the beginning. Was the review material they were sending us was their national book, and it did not address at all Virginia standards. And so that's why we had to wait till they had come up with that. And I know that was because of the delays of the.
How many other publishers were we looking at for those textbooks?
How many textbook companies did we get to send?
What were we looking at for those?
We had about 12 companies that sent us review materials.
Okay. And all of their books were looked at by the committee?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll just throw this out, and something just strikes me a little funny, and maybe you can have some insight on it. But I just crawl on their website, and they're just trying to find out information about them. Their address is site down in Florida. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. We got a Virginia curriculum company with site down in Florida. So I look up their address. Their address is a virtual address that has about a half dozen other people using the same address, and I can go buy that address for about $70 online. To me, that sounds a little sketch. Are there any thoughts on that?
I was not aware of that. I mean, they're a small publishing company, and originally they had come out of Connecticut, my understanding. I'm not sure if they were still there, but I mean, that's, so I'm not sure. I cannot answer at all to the Florida address on them, sorry.
Just seemed odd.
Why not? Ms. Arnold?
So I know we discussed visual appeal of textbooks on a middle school and elementary school level, and I just wanted to confirm that that is going to apply also, or was taken into account when we're discussing high school textbooks, specifically that of the AP level. I know as an AP student, I'm all too familiar with the text on text on text on text type of book, and I wanted to confirm that that was something that was taken into account when also talking about our more advanced students.
Yes, it was. I mean, in fact, I could say specifically it was because several of the teachers and committee members who they specifically joined because they were not excited about the books that were adopted in 2010 because a lot of those advanced placement books were written at a high college level and very small print, and they just did not feel those were inviting to the reading. And the AP teachers and IB teachers and, just like all teachers, they want the students to read the books and not for it to be a chore and to have to drudge through it. They want it to be a captivating read. So they looked at, in fact, I think you'll see in one of them, for instance, it's a narrative. The whole book's is a narrative for the U.S. history. Because that's what they want. They obviously want the students to be reading. So that was definitely a consideration at the high school level as
Awesome.
well.
That sounds excellent. Thank you so much.
And I love getting the question from you, being the first night of that. It's historic. My name can be next to yours now in that respect.
Good. I'm sorry, Mr. Deutsch?
I just want to say, just add one other thing. I think that reading textbooks is actually really important for learning. I know we keep moving digital, but just the multi-sensory ability of reading, touching, underlining regularly adds to the educational process. And I hope that as we keep moving digital, we don't lose that and we keep actually encouraging kids to read hard pieces of paper.
And thank you, Mr. Deutsch and Ms. Jessie.
I'm sure you covered it in the slide. I was just asking Mr. Deutsch if in your committee, and of course we have a question, from one of the students. Did you have student representatives in your committee to look at these books?
We did not, but teachers did share. My understanding is that when I would talk to committee members, they would share resource materials with students as part of their process that they do.
May I recommend that, especially as you get to the high school level, that you include students because students can, I think they know what's going on with those texts, and teachers may feel that they can navigate that text, but the size of the font and the visuals that support the text are very important pieces, and whether or not this appeals to them. And whether or not the digital component. And I was also pleased to hear that you realize that many of these homes do not have the access to the technology and that you've taken that into account. And I also want to thank you because it looks like an enormous amount of work. So thank you very much.
All right. You all set? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Board. Dr. Waltz.
With that, moving right along, superintendent's time. Dr. Waltz.
Thank you, Chairman Sawyers and members of the board. I've got quite a few things to share, but I'll move through it quickly. First of all, welcome to you, Ms. Arnold, Kate Arnold, and also congratulations to Maheen and Zaki. And just for the benefit of those who may be watching, you may be wondering, what do the alternates, what is their responsibility? Well, there may be a night or two that Kate has 2 finals the next day or hopefully won't get sick or something like that, but there may be a need for her to not be present. Could be a out-of-town field trip or that type of thing. So these gentlemen may have a crack at setting up here as well this year. So congratulations to all of you. I would also like to extend my sincere appreciation to Miss Debbie Bishop and Mr. Jeff Gerwin, who was just up here with social studies, because they coordinated the work, which was extensive, of receiving all these applications and working with personnel at each one of our high schools to create these selection committees, and to thank all of the teachers, counselors, support staff, and the administration of each one of our high schools. This was a huge effort to get to this groundbreaking night in history. So thank you to everyone who assisted. I'm very pleased to announce that 49 of our schools have received the school board's highest honor, the title of Prince William County School of Excellence. That's an addition of 2 more schools over last year. Please see the web announcement, pwcs.edu, for the complete list. Schools will hold individual celebrations in the coming weeks. And also at the request of some of the school board members, we've moved this all up, so it should be a little bit easier on the scheduling this year. Congratulations to Fred Lynn Middle School Principal Hamish Brewer. His success as an innovative educational leader was featured last week on the national NBC Nightly News. I have great news about the division's progress in working with students and their families who come here speaking very little or no English. We are now having remarkable success after once experiencing significant challenges. Several years ago, we signed an agreement with the Department of Justice to remedy complaints that the division wasn't doing enough for English language learners and their families. Since then, they've monitored our efforts as we made steady and continuous improvement. Now, all schools division-wide offer a standardized menu of English learner programs and services. Reading, writing, speaking, and critical thinking are taught as part of English learner programs in every one of our core subjects. We have dramatically increased the number of teachers certified in both their subject area as well as ESL, as well as classes co-taught by individuals fluent in a second language. Every school has a multicultural section in its library. We currently offer materials, information, and family outreach in 6 languages. By the way, when I came here in 2005, we had 1 language only. And we can offer translation and interpretation to assist speakers of more than 145 additional languages. Thanks to all this, the Department of Justice decided this month that we have more than satisfied our resolution agreement. I had an opportunity to go to the Justice Department recently and spend about 3 hours there with our team. And we now, they believe very much we have our English learners on the pathway to success. Congratulations to all the teachers, administrators, school, and central office staff across our division. And special thanks to Director Janine Sodke and her Office of English Learner Programs and Services staff. Together, we've made tremendous progress for our English learner students. We're committed to sustaining that progress and to making continuous improvements to ensure their future success. I also want to mention that teachers, regardless of their content area, had to take tremendous numbers of hours of professional development training. It was very, very extensive. And this, again, included just core and regular teachers across all the content areas. Many of our students have distinguished themselves in performing arts, music, and interscholastic activities. The Hilton High School cheerleading team won the 6A state title, their first since 1998. So there's a lot of cheering going on at Hilton. That was a little joke there. Bring a little levity to the meeting.
If we have a budget for a laugh track, Dr. Waltz, we'll get it for you.
Yes, I forgot that. Several schools brought home awards from the Virginia Theater Association's competition. Gainesville Middle School earned a gold recognition for their play, The Carson Turfin, earned a Best Performance Award. Student there at Gainesville Middle. Reagan Middle School student, bear with me. Okay, Nida Tafiri earned an Outstanding Student Director Award. Ricky Hiratek received an Outstanding Assistant Director Award. Bella Lewis was honored for Outstanding Makeup and Costume Direction. And both Britta Taylor and Griffin Cox were honored with Outstanding Actress and Actor Awards. At the same competition, Patriot High School theater students auditioned for more than 30 different colleges. All received multiple callbacks to highly competitive programs. This month, the school division was well represented at the Virginia Music Educators Association Conference by students from Battlefield, Brentsville, Colgan, Hilton, Patriot, Forest Park, Stonewall Jackson, and Woodbridge High Schools. Each one of those schools had groups that were selected to perform in their honors choir at the state conference. Parents of 8th grade and high school students are invited to a high school parent summit on Saturday, January 6th at Hilton High School beginning at 8 a.m. The summit features expert presentations on graduation requirements, scholarships, financial aids, college admission, and much more. Attendance is free, however, space is limited. I will just say, as a parent of a freshman, this year my wife and I did attend that last year, so I just highly encourage 8th grade parents or folks who are going to be new to our high schools to attend that. My wife and I, as parents, found it to be very, very helpful and very, very informative. They'll answer a lot of questions for you as well. So go to our high school web pages or to the College and Career Planning website to register starting December 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Waltz. We will go into board matters. Just before we get into this, with the student representative, I think next meeting we're thinking about putting a statement. She can kind of give her statement earlier in case a board meeting goes long. That way it's not always in board matters. So we'll probably insert it more towards the beginning of the meeting. But we just weren't able to do that today. Probably lack of planning on my part. So as always, blame it on me. But she's in board matters today. And so we'll start with you, Miss Arnold. We'll start down there, and you're up.
Thank you so much. I would like to use this time to say that I am so honored to be entrusted with the privilege to serve as the student representative on the school board. I look forward to doing everything in my power to amplify the voices of our large and diverse student body. Eager to start working with my fellow students in conjunction with my alternates, Maheen and Zaki. I'm so eager to do everything that I can to make sure that we are getting as much student representation as possible on the Prince William County School Board, and would like to emphasize to everybody here that students desperately do want to be involved in their education process, and this is an amazing step. The fact that this position exists is an amazing step in that direction. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank Ms. Bishop and Mr. Gerwin for making a very intimidating application process a lot more manageable. Thank you all so much. I am so excited to begin working on the board.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deutsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start off by recognizing some of the schools that received Schools of Excellence Awards. Specifically Bennett Elementary, Benton Middle School, Coles Elementary School, Loch Lomond Elementary School, Marshall Elementary School, McAuliffe Elementary School, Osborne Park High School, Rosa Parks Elementary School, and Wilson Elementary School. I want to give a shout out to all of them. Secondly, there is an exciting event coming up next Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of the month, but we don't have a school board meeting. Osborne Park High School is doing their annual Messiah Sing-Along at the Hilton Performing Arts Center, Wednesday, December 6th at 7 p.m. We went last year, and they have a impressive choir, band, orchestra, and the very professional soloists. And there are people who come up front, they bring their books of Handel's Messiah, they sing along. Some people come and just watch it, and it's a beautiful and very impressive rendition. And so everybody should check it out and come on out. Secondly, football. Miss Jessie may have a little more to say, but Hilton on Saturday was at the regional championship at Woodbridge High School. And while we came up just a tad short, just a tad, yeah, we'll call it that. It was a very fun game, impressive time, and we can argue second best football team in the county. So a very impressive group of people. Second best out of a whole lot's pretty good. And a bunch of us all had fun on the field afterwards. Justin was out, joined us, and good time had by everybody. Last night was the joint school board meeting and board of supervisors, and we got to talk together, hear about some updates about the economic outlooks on the county, some of the exciting things going on at the community college, and heard from the joint CIP committee about some of the work going on. And I think on a lot of fronts it was a good night, and I think it's particularly exciting that we're going to start working on banking land sites as we work on moving forward to build schools and hopefully start getting ahead of the infrastructure curve. And I think that will help us. It's good to have that meeting before we start on CIP very soon. And that was, I think, a very productive and efficient time. Want to talk for a second just about what it is that we do here as elected officials and really as a school division. And I think, we talk about education, and education is critical. But on the macro level, what is it that we're doing? We're here as culture shapers. As a board, as staff, we're shaping the culture of the school division. We're shaping the educational opportunities that students have. And we are, with the number of employees, the number of students, having an impact on the culture of the community at large. And that places a premium on everything that we do and the ways that they reflect and the impact that they can have. And that's one of the things that I think is important to keep in mind. At the end of the day, we're all going to have disagreements. We're all going to have things that we have different views on. But what makes America special, what makes this community, gives us the opportunity, is the ability to have civil and respectful disagreements and dialogue, and really share and grow and learn from those exchanges of ideas. And to do that, we have to work hard to shape and protect that ability. Because we have growing nasty voices, shall we say, on both sides of the spectrum that are encroaching on that. And there are forces that want to pit people against each other, and that's not helpful to the long-term growth of the culture and the community that we're building. And it's going to be important more and more to stand up to not only the people it's easiest to stand up to, but people who may even portray themselves as friends. To say that regardless of what things we may agree on or disagree on, being able to protect the ability to respectfully disagree is critical to the future of this county and to the country. And so I think it's important that we're willing to remember that principles of decency, honesty, and integrity have to stand above the political phrase that often engulf things. And regardless of if it's somebody we may agree with or somebody we may disagree with. And that is critical regardless. And to engage, to invite, to be excited almost about hearing from different opinions, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow. There are often, or at times, we can call it either one, heated disagreements between members of this board. And that at times is appropriate. But I will just say that I was very disappointed earlier to hear accusations with a wild disregard for the truth being made, and that is wrong no matter who makes them. And that we should value the truth, we should value integrity, period. And to throw things out with a wild disregard for the truth is very alarming and concerning about what we do as a community.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. We'll come all the way down here to Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams?
Cool, surprise. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first I'm just so excited, Ms. Arnold, that you're on the board. I want to it burst from joy, and it's even more exciting than marching bands, and I love those two, and I know it's not even a fair comparison, but it's like the level of excitement is telling you. And for those who don't know, it's that exciting to me because a few years ago I went to NSBA, our National School Board Association Conference, and watched a presenter from Alaska talk about having a student board on the rep, and I immediately went to Dr. Waltz and almost gave him a heart attack and was like, we should do this now. And he just kind of looked at me like, Miss Williams, as he so patiently does, there's just so much more than just appointing someone. And obviously, he was right. It's a process that took a long time. I can say from sitting on this end of the dais, I'm really proud of our staff and our school system for making it, I think, one of the most non-biased processes that I've seen come out of Prince William County schools. And I haven't seen them all, so I can't say that, it's never happened before. But being around for a little while, I am really proud of the staff and way they handled the process to make it fair. And I'm really proud that all of our high schools, New Directions, Pace, everyone had an equal opportunity to sit in that seat. And I'm just so excited that you're there and that you're able to speak for our students. I'm equally excited from our representatives. Sorry, I'm a little short, so I know there's someone I can't see, Zachy, and I think that that's wonderful. I just want to say a special thank you to your families for coming, supporting you, and your goals to be on the board. And then as a mom, I just want to say, way to go, siblings. You guys have sat through this entire board meeting, because I know at home you're probably like, normal sibling stuff. Amazing. You should get your own little shout out. So I wanted to make sure that I said thank you to you too, because I know it's not your moment and you've done your brother and sister proud by sitting in the audience so calmly. It's always fun to share the spotlight. And thank you to the parents too, and parents or relatives, I should say, because some people have more than others, for coming to support your student. I'm just so excited. It's awesome. It's really important that we have that voice, because we up here make the rules and the policies that you have to abide by. And with the way that technology and education and the world changes so fast, sometimes adults, we get in our own way of helping you. So I think it's nice that we're going to have that balance and we get to hear direct from the source. So I'm looking forward to every bit of information you choose to share with us. And just want to keep it kind of short. Parent Summit, awesome. January 6th. If you have been, go again. Every year is different. This will be now my 3rd year attending. Every year I learn something new. So even if you are a rising senior parent, there's still something new to learn. Fun fact, last year I think most of the parents of other languages hunted Mr. Bassett down because he had the course catalog in like 8 different languages. It was like the golden ticket at the Parent Summit. So there's all kinds of interesting things that you may run across there. It's well worth the early Saturday morning time frame, and it's a good experience. Finishing up on that, I just want to say congratulations to my school alumni for Woodbridge, because I'm always just slightly biased about that, for winning what's it called, playoff? Playoff? Yeah, see, horrible sports person, regional chair. It's been said like 8 times. I still can't get it to sing. But I just want to say congratulations to them. And I also want to say, because I'm going to differ here from Mr. Deutsch and say that I think that Freedom, even though they lost to Hilton, it's okay, is still the 2nd best team, but I'm also a little biased on that too. And feel free, I know there's like sports things where you blame people and superstitions, so go ahead and blame me for bringing your name up last time. If you got to do that, fully accept responsibility. But I just want to again congratulate them and also congratulate Woodbridge on 2 very successful seasons. And I wish them the best of luck this coming weekend on December 2nd. And I hope everyone had a great holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wilk.
I'll be brief for once. Yeah, right. I won't go through my events. I apologize for missing last meeting. I was in a week-long business trip in Michigan. Got to feed the family, which leads to I wish everyone had a great Thanksgiving. I stayed local with the family, and we're going to Michigan for Christmas, but it was a good little time off. I did go to Hilton and the Woodbridge football game. I did root for Hilton. We have kids that live in Montclair who do go to Hilton. So congratulations, Woodbridge, on your Vikings. I know what it's like to win a regional championship with Potomac in basketball all the time. So you guys can have football. I do want to quickly congratulate Ashland, Forest Park, Henderson, and Patty, and Triangle for making School of Excellence, and I'm done.
That's new league record for Mr. Wilk. Ms. Ralston. Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Ms. Ralston.
In order to beat you, I have to say hello and goodbye.
In fact, you have to beat him. New rule. Yeah.
When I joined this board, I said I wanted to bring good news. And so I've had some parents in the past few weeks to say, you know, well, where's the good news? And, well, I forgot. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mulgrew. Mr. Mulgrew, do you have the, there we go. So this is going to be my good news for NEAPSCO, so that when the parents see me at the grocery stores, you know, they won't say, well, what's going on? And did I forget?
If Mr. Shanahan can put it on to the...
Okay. So I'm going to let Mr. Mulgrew explain to you what it is.
Ms. Ralston called me, and good evening, by the way. I'm sorry. Ms.
Speak
Ralston.
up so they can hear you.
Yes, that is an issue for me. I do understand that. Garfield High School, I just want to give you just some facts that we have discovered over the data over the last couple of years. Number one, Garfield High School, and I know there's been some people who've questioned how the students in your district are doing. Since 2012 to 2013, the Garfield has increased its ACT scores, that's the American College Test, every year since 2012 to 2013. Today, this year, Ms. Ralston, that is the highest in the level of Garfield's history this year. Increased the SAT scores from 2011 to 2016, 15 points in reading, 10 points in math, 7 points in writing. This year, Ms. Ralston, this was a new test this year for the SAT, so we have to recenter our views. Garfield High School exceeded the national average on the SAT by 19 points. To my knowledge, and I'm a Garfield graduate, I will not mention the year that took place, but we have never exceeded the national average. This year, we have not only exceeded the national average, in my opinion, we destroyed it by 19 points on the SAT. The Garfield's graduation rate for English language learners is 80 in 2017, is 80.83. There was a time in our county where 83%, before Dr. Waltz was our graduation rate for all students. That is a significant achievement, especially when some of our neighbors, especially the one to the north, doesn't have a number close to that number. Highest on-time graduate and highest graduation completion index in its history. I know that Dr. Sadke, if he was here tonight, would say that he would appreciate the foundations laid by Mr. Dalek, Dr. Akins, Bill Bixby, and the rest, because the work that they did, he's the beneficiary. But I would also like to share with you that those are the numbers. Sometimes people at the middle school, sometimes we'll look and we see achievement gaps. We do have them. Sometimes we have assessment gaps. We'll look at a student in 7th grade, and how could the same student in 7th grade maybe not look so good, but by 12th he is looking very good in your district. Sometimes it's the way that we assess students, especially as they're learning the language. I think the quote that we tend to tell our high school principals is, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And they only give medals at the end. Your students have, I wish they gave medals, Ms. Ralston, at marathons at the halfway point. I would have quite a few. Unfortunately, they do not. At the end, your students are sprinting and doing better than they've ever done before. So I thought I would share. There is a second slide. I wanted to share this one. You did ask me, and so I gave this slide for you. This is our our excellence and equity rating, percentage by subgroup. If you notice in the third column, it will say students who identify as 2 or more races. That's how they identify themselves. In 2012, 33% of them graduated having passed an AP, IB, or Cambridge test. This year, it's 35.1. Our Asian students at 45.5 increased to 47.2. For African American students, 18.8, we increased in 2012, which is a solid number, to 24.1. Hispanic of any race, 22.3. In 2012 is now 25.5. White from 41.6 to 42.4. The only two subgroups that we decreased in during that time period was American Indian, Alaskan Native, but we only have 16 kids in that cohort. So you tend to have a lot of volatility in that when you have such a small group. But if you look at the bottom number, we went from 31.3 to 33.6. If you use the established standard, Ms. Ross, of 20% being the national average, 1 out of 5 kids across the United States graduate with that. Our African American students exceed the national average. Our Hispanic students exceed the national average. Our Native Hawaiian students exceed the national average. Our white students exceed the national average. Our Asian students exceed the national average. And students who identify themselves as 2 or more races exceed the national average. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming up and doing this for me. Mr. Bixby, thank you for setting the school on the right track and following through. So I thank you, and I thank Dr. Saki for continuing what you laid out there. So that takes care of my good news for the evening.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. Mr. Trenum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Wilk, I think I'm going to use a little bit of your time. I hope you don't mind. If you do, I'll use it anyway. All right, thanks. First off, I want to welcome Ms. Arnold and our other 2 student alternatives to the board. I hope you find this experience to be educational, entertaining, and a productive use of your time. Following on Mr. Wilk and also Mr. Deutsch, as far as congratulations to all the Brentsville schools that made School of Excellence, real quick, and I'll hit them kind of quickly, but we've got Brentsville District High School, Bristow Run Elementary School, Buckland Mills Elementary School, Cedar Point, Chris Young, Gainesville Middle, Glenkirk Elementary, Haymarket Elementary, Marsteller Middle, we've got the Nokesville School, Patriot High School. I'll claim Pennington Traditional School since it doesn't really sit in anybody's district, and I really like Pennington. Piney Branch, and T. Clay Wood, and Victory Elementary School. Once again, congratulations, everyone. Great job. Yes, I do. That's okay. Those are fun events. On a personal note, so most of you all know that I was deployed for a year, and I've mentioned this before, but I don't think I've mentioned it in this forum. While I was gone, all the schools in Brentsville sent me a care package, and that is actually thanks to the work of Ms. Jarson Hart. So once again, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate that. It really made a huge difference in just the morale, and I had the best decorated clue in the camp, in my opinion. But on that note, I try to repay the favor as much as I can. I really can't equate that. But one thing I did get to do was on September the 11th, of this past year, I was able to have some flag flown over the base in recognition and honor of our, I chose the high schools in the Brentsville district because you can only do so many. So I gave Brentsville District High School their flag on senior night at the football game a few weeks back. I was there as a parent of a senior, so it was a convenient spot, convenient time, and a wonderful opportunity. Just for future events, on Friday, December 8th, I'll be at Patriot at the basketball game when they're playing Forest Park there, and then at Stonewall on Thursday, December 14th, I will be at the Winter Choir Concert and giving them their fall. So I hope to see some of you all there. The last thing is I want to follow on. Mr. Deutsch mentioned the joint infrastructure committee between the boards and the work they're doing there. I want to kind of emphasize what we're doing within the school division with regard to infrastructure, and specifically the infrastructure task force. Back at the beginning of 2016, I brought this to the board, and I was very appreciative to have the support of the entire board to look at infrastructure differences within our school division between the older and newer schools. we've gotten a lot, some strong reminders of that from some of our community members lately, and I appreciate that because next board meeting we will see the first product for the infrastructure task force. The infrastructure task force started off at looking at infrastructure differences at the elementary schools. That's what they'll be briefing at the next board meeting, and they're diving into the Herculean task of the middle and high schools next. I really appreciate this because as someone who's seen several new schools in my district, I really saw those stark differences, which is why I brought this forward. Just to follow on, so we have Woodbridge High School that was built in '74, but we've also got Stonewall Jackson was built in '73, Garfield was built in '72, and Brentsville was built in '65. At the middle school level, we have 6 middle schools in our school division that were built in the 1960s, all across the county. At the elementary school level, we have 15 schools that were built in the 60s or sooner, including Dumfries, which was opened in 1918, and Occoquan in 1927. So we've got some, and also, once again, don't want to leave out Pennington. Pennington was opened in the 60s as well. So we do have this, so this is a Herculean task, and it's going to take a long time to address all these, but I'm glad that we're moving forward and starting on these. So once again, thank you for all of the attention that we're getting on that. I look forward to hearing more about it next time. And that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Trenum. Ms. Satterwhite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to welcome Ms. Arnold up to the dais. It's nice to have you on the board with us. We welcome you. We'll fill you in on all the details where everything is. Great to have you on board. And thank you also. Welcome to our alternates. We look forward to seeing you at board meetings also. So thank you for your service to Prince William County Schools and all of our students. For School of Excellence, Mr. Deutsch, thank you for starting this. I want to recognize Alvey Elementary School, Battlefield High School, Bull Run Middle School, Gravely Elementary School, Mountain View Elementary School, Reagan Middle School, and Tyler Elementary School. Look forward to attending your events as they come up. So congratulations to all of our School of Excellence schools. I know there's been some comment about schools that didn't make it. The criteria is tough, and sometimes a school will miss it by only a couple of points. I know in Gainesville District, we have some schools who made it last year, who made it 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm confident that we'll have them back on the list again. And so just want to reassure parents and community members that we are working very hard with our students. Sometimes it might even be absences. Sometimes it might be just a matter of a couple points on a test for a few kids. So we're working very hard with all of our kids and all of our schools to get them back up to School of Excellence. As Mr. Deutsch mentioned, with December, we do have our winter concerts, and Osborne Parks is coming up next Wednesday. Most of our schools, from elementary through high school, do have winter concerts from chorus, orchestra, band, and I encourage families to take advantage of those concerts and support our students and our performing arts programs. And let's see, along those lines, Sinclair Elementary School does have a chorus and strings concert coming up soon. Battlefield High School presents Our Town. Speaking of performing arts, Battlefield High School Theater, December 7th through 9th. There is a matinee in there somewhere, I believe, so make sure to check that out. Mountain View Elementary School is still having their coat drive, one warm coat through December 5th for gently used and new coats. If anybody in the community has some coats they want to donate, you can go to the office and donate those. Also this last week, there were some issues that came up with social media, and I'm not going to get into the full statement that I made before. Anybody can check that out, my Friends of Allison Satterwhite Facebook page. But, I just want to say, we had some citizens talking tonight, too, about the flag and about comments that were made on social media. And this isn't a partisan issue. It's a patriotic issue. It is a First Amendment issue. Mr. Sawyers was correct in bringing up, yes, it's a First Amendment issue that our students do have a right to sit during the pledge or during the national anthem. I would just remind students that you can choose to not participate in the Pledge of Allegiance, but we ask that you sit quietly out of respect for the views of others and make no display that disrupts or distracts others who are reciting the pledge. And then I would also challenge anybody who chooses to sit, understand why you're doing it. Don't just sit because it's the popular thing to do right now. Know what you're doing. Know what your beliefs are. When I was in elementary school, there was a student who sat, and I didn't understand it, so I asked. It was a religious belief. And I just asked for an explanation because I was curious and I was informed. I think making this inflammatory, as it was made last week on social media, makes it seem like there's a crisis in Prince William County schools when in fact there's not a crisis in Prince William County schools in this, and I think that was unacceptable. I would encourage all of our students to show respect for our flag with the pledge, and also encourage all of our students to show respect for the office of the president, even if you disagree. I haven't necessarily liked some of the presidents during my lifetime, but it doesn't mean I show disrespect for the office. And so I just ask that parents, the staff members use this as a learning opportunity, that, and also for those of us as elected officials, we're held to a higher standard. And it's, in our schools, we're trying to teach our students to show respect for each other. And on this board, I think we need to work on making sure that we're showing respect for each other in our community, showing respect for each other on the board, and working on our social media also to not be inflammatory. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Satterwhite. Vice Chair Jesse.
I really want to say to Ms. Arnold, I met her at the beginning, and we were there, and I said, you may have to speak. And she said, oh, I'm ready. And I thought, Ms. Bishop, you guys selected the right person to be on this board, and I know how difficult it was. And to the alternates, you are two of the most handsome young men. I don't know, boy. And it's the three of you, the photo op is going to be tremendous. But I know that you're as bright as all get out. And I just want to thank you because this is not the most exciting job you'll ever have. Life will not treat you like this forever. You won't have to sit on boards, I hope. But I think you will learn a great deal about lots of things. And so tonight you heard people who disagree, and there are people who disagree, and there are adults who disagree. And this is a forum, so you will hear a little bit of everything. Now, having said that, my husband, here we go. Thank you. I think that says it all. And, you know, the last time I had to apologize because I thought Woodbridge was going to lose and I left the game. So I stayed for the full game, and it was just tremendous. And the pride that they have as a team, because this is not something that's happened to that team. And so I just want to thank the Woodbridge team, and I want to thank Ms. Abney for inviting me and my husband. They treated us royally. They even allowed me to hold the trophy, so I am very, very excited about that. I want to talk a little bit about the joint board and to inform people, because I'm not sure people understand that there is a board now where we're trying to collaborate with the school board and the board of supervisors, because there's been a real misunderstanding, I think, and I understand as a principal, I really didn't know how we built schools, and I had no idea. I thought, actually, I blame Dr. Waltz for everything that went wrong, everything. And and then all of a sudden, the school board, I realized that the school board makes a lot of decisions, but there are three of us on that board. I'm on that board, Ms. Williams is on that board, and Mr. Trenum on the board. And there are three representatives from the Board of Supervisors. Last night, you know, I think it's some Oprah Sunday afternoon program I watch, and they talk about not just people listening to you, but that you heard. And last night when we started talking about trailers, I started to realize that maybe I had dropped the ball, because there were discussions like, well, I don't know if we care about trailers, and we were talking about class size reduction. So I just wanted to just give you the impact of trailers, because it's really not about trailers. It's really about overcrowding. It's overcrowding in our schools. The only reason you have a trailer is that there is overcrowding. And I've experienced this situation I was a principal for 20 years. And when I walked into Vaughan, they said, your lunchroom, you don't have a lunchroom, of which I said, are you kidding, right? And they said, no, you do not. And my food was brought across the street from Woodbridge Middle. So I want to thank Dr. Waltz for giving me a cafeteria. So And the wing, yes, it's kind of personal, but he gave me a wing. He came down to the school and he said, "My God, this place looks like a trailer park." And it did, because there were 3 trailers on the lawn. And now I go to Vaughn last year, and there were like 6 trailers on the lawn. There were trailers on the fields. And I recall when a student was asthmatic, and at that time you could not take the puffer, as we called it. You had to lock it up. And I would have all these situations where I have to unlock the medicine drawer, get the puffer, run out to the trailer. So I've listed what some of the impacts, because I think if you understand the impact of being a principal in a school with all of these trailers, maybe it will provide some clarity. First of all, class size. Lack of space forces you as a principal to increase class size. I recall increasing my first grade. The first grade team was one of those perfect teams, and there are principals in this room who know when you got that perfect team, anything you ask them to do, they do it. And I put 30 kids, first graders, in a classroom with 2 teachers, and they said, "We love you, but no, we can't do this." You could not move in that classroom. So I had to really relook at that. So when you have class size, when you have trailer problems, you have class size. And that's why I've emphasized on this class size reduction. The formula right now does not work for those of us who had overcrowding. Because if you say, "I'm going to give you a teacher in a classroom," I have no place to put them. So that's one thing. Isolation of special needs students. Because they are the smaller group, we always put them in trailers, and I was guilty of that. And when you think about students who have special needs, they come to school and they're different from other people anyway. And then you isolate them by putting them in a trailer. I had behavior problems in trailers, and the kids would leave that room, run through the woods, and we had to run through the woods to find them, because we had to bring them back to the classroom. Specialty programs. Most of the time when you have a problem with trailers, you put art, music, PE in a trailer. Or you have what we call art on wheels, music on wheels, where you haven't lived until you've been in school where you have the music class taking place in a regular setting, because they can't sing too loudly. I've had PE in classrooms. The worst was when I put art in a trailer. I thought, this is easy. And he came to me and he said, "How am I going to get water? I need water." So we were carrying buckets of water back and forth to the art trailer. Programs. My cafeteria held 350 kids. We always had more. If you had a program, you had to have 2 or 3 programs, because you could get all the parents into the cafeteria. And I have to say, I'm glad safety's not here, but we violated the fire code every week. We had more kids in that cafeteria than we should. We had lots of, because then that affected the schedule. So you start in the morning at 10, and you can't have PE in there, because now that space is also filled. Curriculum. I asked Ms. Goss to give me a list of all the students that had science labs. When you're in a school with trailers and you're overcrowded, you don't get to have a science lab. We talk about STEM. And so I think Mr. Trenum talks about equity and these schools, because if you are in that situation, you don't have a lab, because you have to use it as a classroom. Safety issues. I was very concerned about second graders being in trailers, because when there's a storm, you look over, you see that little radio, and there's a storm. First thing you do as a principal, and Jocelyn will tell you this, and all the one has been principal, the first thing you do is get the kids in the trailer out. And you have to get them inside quickly, and because you know those trailers are going to fly away. So you want older kids in trailers. So I asked one of the principals, "Why did you put second graders in trailers?" She said, my fifth graders are too big. I had too many, and I couldn't put them in the trailers. And I went in to see a fourth grade group, and you could not move in that room. So we look at curriculum. Special needs with medical situations. We now have autistic kids. My daughter was a substitute teacher, and she loved working with autistic kids. And these were severely autistic kids who needed diapering. And they always called her, which surprises me that Jennifer wanted to actually take care of kids with diapers, and because Jennifer doesn't even clean her room. So I thought, whoa. But for some reason, she fell in love with these kids, and she would go there. And one of my friends, and I won't tell you which friend it is, a principal, had to take those autistic kids out of the trailers because they had medical needs. They have diapering needs and things of this nature. Tornado drill. I talked to one principal who said there's not enough space to bring 800 kids into the building and put them along the corridors, and to do a tornado drill in the manner that it should be done. So I just wanted to make a point that overcrowding is the issue, and infrastructure is a problem. Woodbridge High was here tonight, and you hear the only way we can solve it is either to build new schools or to make additions. But there is, with all the new schools and the bigness of them, and I voted for Kogan, as you know. But I love the fact that those second graders are getting trained in swimming. And those swim teams came to me, and I never swam. And I had no idea that these kids were up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So I always say I defend the fact that I voted for Kogan. But now when I look at Woodbridge, they did invite me to go to the trough, but I thought, I don't think I'll go there. But that should not be happening in our school system. Those kids deserve the equity. And with that, I just want to say to all of you that when I came on this board, I said learning was my first #1 priority. But I also realized that safety is also paramount, and that we need to put our kids in safe structures. And I want to thank Mr. Klein for the efforts that he is making. We, on our end of the county, because we have so much overcrowding, we're going to be in boundary meetings forever. And you haven't lived until you've been in a boundary meeting. And as I told the people in Lake Ridge, and I told the people in the various boundary meetings, somebody is going to be very, very unhappy. So I hope we can solve the problem that we have. And I want to thank you for your efforts also. Dr. Waltz, I want to thank you also. I didn't blame you for the overcrowding. Yes, I did. But thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Ms. Satterwhite asked for a brief re-recognition. Ms. Satterwhite?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this. I just want to recognize very quickly Mark DePatty, our Prince William County School Resource Officer, who's here tonight. And he is going to be leading the next group of Prince William County police officers in hurricane recovery efforts in Puerto Rico for 2 weeks, and he leaves on Sunday. So I want to thank him for his service for that.
Thank you, Ms. Satterwhite. I had jokes planned, and now you just bombed them with all good news. No, I'm just kidding. Mark, you're awesome. You know it. I love that you're here. You keep us safe, and I don't know how you're still sane sitting through all these board meetings, but good for you. Good for you. Yeah. Just a few things. Since people brought up the schools of excellence, I want to reiterate, and I did put this on social media, but once again, to my fellow board members, I had more schools of excellence than everybody. So I would just like to make that point known. Again, I lead the board another year. So, we've obviously done an amazing job. So I really would like to point that out to everybody. I know, right? You're welcome for that. Anyway, to the family sitting here, especially the brothers and sisters that came, I just want to give you a heads up. If you come in the future, let us know, especially like back that door, magic, Skittles, all sorts of things. It's like that's basically where we spend the entire school budget back there is on Skittles and candy and Snickers bars and things like that. It's like Halloween every single day. So yeah, just like come on back. No parents allowed. It's like Disney, but just candy version. So come on back anytime, and you can use it as much as you want. And then for the student board members with Kate and Maheen and Zachy, I just want to let you know, just take it from my 2 years on the board so far, that any just normal daily routine experience that you're not huddled up in your house, even those can be ruined through social media. People are going to think that you can fix every single thing in the school system just because they brought it up to you, let's say, like at the grocery store. So learn this line, memorize it. That's interesting. I'll look into that. Right? just get used to that line. It's a very good line. Good point. Thank you, sir. I will look into that. That's the line that I suggest. I'm sure every board member kind of has their own version. You can pick whichever one you'd like, but you will use that quite thoroughly. I promise you. Then the last two things, actually school related, is, and Gil, Mr. Trenum, I'm assuming I'm going to see you at both of these, of course, because they're both in the Brentsville district, as you and I both reside there. But Snow White is going on this weekend at Gainesville Middle School, and the Glenkirk Singing Knights Chorus has a concert tomorrow. I believe, Mr. Trenum, you and I have a duet. Is that correct? I haven't looked at the schedule.
You don't want to hear me.
No, okay, got it. So no duet. That's officially canceled.
That's a bad plan.
Yeah, it could. Yeah. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about fundraisers on the dais, but that's okay. We could do that. But yeah, absolutely. So honestly, Snow White, Gainesville Middle School this weekend, Thursday, Friday, I believe. I don't know, a baseball guy. What do they call it? Doubleheader on Saturday? I'm not exactly sure what it is. They have two of them on Saturday, and then the Singing Knights course, I believe, is tomorrow. Check your local listings for time. I'm sure it's in the Washington Post. So give it a shot. And the last but not least is we would like to get a photo with all the student reps and everyone here. We didn't get one with the board, so grab your cameras, all that, and we want to take a quick picture after I strike the gavel, which is happening right now after I say, with no further business before this board, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. 9:30.